and welcome to this week's YouTube video. Today I'm going to show you how I painted Niles. Before I show you the time-lapse video, I wanted to show you the original reference photo and talk about why edges are so important in painting. So I am just going to crop this photo now so that it is the same size as the painting. As a reference photo, or just as a photo, it is very lovely. It is very clear. It is very cute. It's a great picture to paint from. But turning this into a painting, the outline of the dog is very distracting. And if I was to paint this exactly as it was, it would result in a very obvious dog in front of a background, and the bulk of the body would be very distracting to the eye. That is what you'd look at first. So as an artist, I need to interpret this picture to make it an effective painting. If you follow my YouTube channel, you'll know that I have done a video on the 5 essentials for a successful painting in oils. So briefly, these are drawing, value, colour, temperature, and of course edges. So what can I do to my edges then to help elevate this photograph into a successful painting? The answer lies in lost and found edges. But what do I mean by this? So rather than having a clear silhouette around the object, I might choose to have parts of the object disappear into the background. What is the point of doing this? It's important to remember that the eye does not see like the camera lens. The eye sees in terms of a central point of focus, and then everything outside of this is blurry. The camera picks out every detail, and if you're painting this way, it very often gives it away that you have worked from a reference photo. So by mimicking how the eye actually sees objects, I will end up with something that looks a little bit more realistic and also directs the eye to the area that I want you to look at, which is the face in this instance and not Niles's body. Lost edges also give a sense of mystery to your paintings. It makes them feel very suggestive and often more interesting. So I just wanted to show you what happens if I was to put this image into Photoshop and to start losing edges. Instantly, this image is transformed from a very obvious photograph to something a bit more artistic, a bit more interesting with some mystery about it. If you have Photoshop yourself, you can have a go at doing this to your images before you start painting. You can also do this in programs like Procreate if you select some of the artistic brushes, like the turpentine ones, that will pull the pixels around. It is always a good idea to figure out what it is you want to do with your reference photo before you start painting, because you will be less tempted to just copy the photo and you will interpret it into a painting better. So now let's have a look at the time-lapse video, and I will talk about what I am doing as I go along. I am painting Niles with a limited palette. The colours that I am using are yellow ochre light, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, ultramarine deep, zinc titanium white and ivory black. My preference is always to try to use a limited palette, as it will produce much more harmonious paintings. I also think that you are better off limiting your use of black as much as possible and trying to find your neutral greys within your other colours. It is important to remember that within black and white there is a complete absence of colour. This is where you have to forget about what you think you are seeing and focus on what you actually think you are seeing. What I think I see is a grey dog, so the temptation would be to use my black and white. By doing this, I will only produce a painting that is flat and is not convincing in its sense of form. Also remember that Niles's fur is taking on the colour from its environment, so there is colour in his grey. I have to try and find this within my palette. By limiting my colours, I'm actually making it easier for myself by limiting my choices. So in my palette, I have one yellow, which is a cool yellow, but it can still make lovely oranges when mixed with my cadmium red. I have two reds. I have a warm red in cadmium red and a cool red in alizarin crimson. I also have two darks, ultramarine deep and ivory black. Interestingly, ivory black becomes a blue when you add white, but I am going to try and stay away from my ivory black as much as possible, and I'm only going to use it in my really darkest areas, but I'm going to mix in alizarin crimson with it, so I will never use the ivory black on its own. I will always add red to warm it up. So how am I going to make my greys for this painting? I am basically going to use a combination of complementary colours. The whole painting is based around orange and blue. My orange will be a mix of yellow ochre light with cadmium red. My blue is just ultramarine deep. When I mix these two colours together and add white, I start to get a neutral grey. What's more, I can control the temperature shifts much easier. If it is warmer, I just add more orange. If it is cooler, I just add more blue. So the area around Niles' face carries more orange, and the area in his ears carries more blue. But I need to add another dimension to the colour in this painting. So I have also added alizarin crimson in some of my greys to give me a silvery grey. I now have two greys in this painting. My first grey is mixed with orange, blue and white. And for my second grey, I have just added a little alizarin crimson to this mix. I lay my paint in the following way. My darkest darks are a mix of alizarin crimson and black. I then move on to my greys, which is a mix of orange, blue and white, but it leans heavier on the blue. I then move on to my mid-tones, which is a mix of orange, blue, white and alizarin crimson. I then move on to my lighter greys, and this is a mix of orange, blue and white, but it leans heavier on the orange. I move around the whole painting in this way, using this very simple colour mixes, but making sure I keep varying my temperatures between warm and cool. Using complementary colours in this way makes it easier for me to do this. I'm not getting caught up in haphazard mixing and forgetting what colours I have used to mix what. I'm a big fan of making things as simple as possible, and they don't need to be complicated. The second thing I wanted to talk briefly about in this painting is my choice of brushes. I'm using a flat brush to get the paint down initially, a round brush for the detailed areas like the eyes, but when I come to paint the fur, I will switch to a long-haired comber brush. A long-haired comber brush will allow me to paint wet on wet, which is very important with long fur. This painting has been done in 4 sittings. I have labelled each sitting on the video as I go so that you can see where I start a new sitting. Layers 1 and 2 are very quick, and I'm just getting the paint on to give me an idea of what I'm looking at. I let layers 1 and 2 dry overnight before I attempt layers 3 and 4. Layers 3 and 4 is where I use thicker paint. I will always paint layers 3 and 4 in consecutive days because I need to have the paint as pliable as possible. I do not want layer 3 to be dry before I attempt layer 4. I need to be able to pull and push that paint around, and so I will always use my comber brush on layers 3 and 4 because this brush will allow me to do this, and it will give me the soft edges that I am after. And that is pretty much it. I hope you have enjoyed today's YouTube video and also found it useful. Please check out my website sarahhallidayart.com, where you will find examples of my work and also details of online courses that I run. Thank you for watching and see you for the next one.